877-827. I see my next guest on the line. Very excited. We're going to go back, guys, 43 years for this one. Todd Rundgren's Utopia. This is Freedom Fighters with Kevin Ellman on drums.
And now back to Around the Kit with Joe Gansas.
Guys, we are live 646-787-8027. Great stuff from an all-time great artist there. Gives me great pleasure to welcome to Around the Kit, Kevin Ellman. Kevin, Joe Gansas, Around the Kit.
How you doing?
How are you, sir? I'm good. How are
Very
you?
good, thank you. Great.
That was a song from your past, huh?
It really was.
Yeah, 43 years. My God, how quickly time flies. I want to go back a little bit, in the early days of the drums right now, and what was going on with a young musician, drummer, and even taking lessons from the legendary, Jim Chapin years ago.
Well, so, I grew up in Manhattan, and I started studying with Jim Chapin when I was 13.
Nice.
And he was teaching out of the back of the professional percussion studio in Midtown Manhattan. I used to go there once a week and take lessons. And I actually still have the drum pad that he gave me to practice on. I still practice on it practically every day. And as a matter of fact, I took it on the road with me when I was with Todd, and I used to practice before every show with my Jim Chapin drum pad.
Yeah. I got to tell you a quick story. A friend of my show, the drumming ambassador to the world, Dom Famularo, he told me a story once. He went to visit Jim in the hospital, and he's walking down the aisle, Kev, and he hears this guy playing these rudiments on a pad, and he's like, "Where's that coming from?" He gets in Jim's room. Jim dies 2 days later, so 2 days before his death, Jim is practicing on his pad, and Dom goes, Jim, what are you doing?" "I'm practicing." It just goes to show you when somebody loves something, Kevin, in life, no matter what it is, they pretty much take it to their death with them.
Well, he certainly loved to play. He loved to play on the pad. He was constantly practicing rudiments and practicing, the molar downstroke. And he passed it on to me, and I still practice all of my Jim Chapin exercises even today. I mean, every day I practice. I love to play, and the technique that he showed me has stood with me all this time. It was really wonderful.
Absolutely, guys. Talking to the great Kevin Ellman right now, 646-787-8027. What did the College of Berkeley of Music do for you as an aspiring musician and also as a young man?
Well, I only spent, I think it was about a year and a half, almost 2 years at Berkeley, and I studied with Fred Buda when I was there. And, of course, we worked on reading. I would have to say my technique and my chops are pretty good. Of course, I did a ton of practicing and playing in groups. But I did get a solid foundation in harmony and theory. I learned how to play a little bit of piano. I learned how to do a little solfeggio. So I got the basics. But believe it or not, Fred said to me one day that if I was going to be a player, and frankly, I didn't have the talent to be a songwriter or an arranger, composer, I really planned to be a drummer. He said, if you're going to be a drummer, you really should play. So he said he thought that Berkeley was really more geared for people who were into arranging and composition. He actually encouraged me to go back to New York and work as a pro. So I did. I left school, and my first job was with Manhattan Transfer. And when that gig was over, I started playing with Bette Midler. One day I said to the guys in the band, I said, look, I need a gig. Anybody's looking for a drummer? They said, oh, yeah, this girl, Bette Midler, is looking for a drummer. Give her a call. So I called her up, and she said, well, come on down on Tuesday. We're going to have an audition at a downtown studio. So I showed up at the studio, and there was Barry Manilow on the piano and Bette Midler and a set of drums. That was it. So they sat down. I played some tunes. They said, okay, you're hired. And that's what I did. I was playing all around the city, doing commercials, doing, demos, playing on weddings, playing with Bette Midler. I mean, any kind of gig I could play, that I could get to play, I took, just to get more and more experience.
Yes. Do you think that's important? Do you think that's important for a young drummer today? If you can give us some advice to play as much as he can, somebody could be the best drummer in the world, Kevin. If he's playing in his garage, in his basement, in his bedroom, and nobody knows who he is, he's not going to get anywhere. So you think it's the right attitude to get out there and play and just experience even all different genres of music,
Well, I think if you want to make a living as a drummer, first of all, I think in today's world it's probably not enough to be a drummer only. I think you got to play a lot of styles of music. So, no matter what you get called for, you got to be able to play. And I remember once seeing a cartoon, and there's two different kits. The one on the left it's a guy sitting at a gigantic drum set. You can't even see his hands. There's a blur, he's playing crazy fast stuff, and everybody's looking around going like, wow, that's amazing. And then the guy next to him, he's got like a regular 4-piece kit, and he's just playing, boom, chick, boom, ba-doom, ba-back, boom, boom, chick, boom, ba-doom, ba-back, boom, boom. And they go, you're hired. So it's a very important thing to understand that, if you're going to play, you got to make music. And while, I did get lost a little bit, in the chop thing. And, working with Jim, he was very chops oriented. So, I got caught up in that too. But I think at the end of the day, you got to really be able to make music and make the music sound good. And you got to make the other guys sound good. And you got to get along with people, So there's a lot of things other than being fast.
Yes, and you segued into my next question, teamwork. Teamwork in what you do now, I think, is so important outside the drumming world or what you're doing. You're so successful. But how important is teamwork, Kevin Ellman, working together as a unit, not only as a band, you need that to band together. That's what the word band is. You're banding together as one. But how important is teamwork, not only in music, but, in everything we do in life to surround yourself with the correct team?
Well, I think it's everything. I mean, particularly in music, and this is why I think, even if you're not going to be a professional musician, playing music and playing music with other people is a tremendous life skill and teaches you all the, so many of the life skills that you need. Lots of people think, okay, well, I want my kids to play, football or baseball or soccer, and they're going to learn teamwork. And that's true. That's a very good way to learn teamwork. But it's a competitive environment. So when you learn teamwork in a musical environment, it's not about, our band is going to be better than your band. It's not that the drummer is going to be better than the bass player. It's a cooperative effort. So I think it teaches you how to cooperate in a way to make beautiful music. And it sounds silly, but it's true. And I know from my own experience, particularly, playing with John Siegler in Utopia, and we played in other bands together. And we still play together today in a band 40 years later.
Nice.
There's nothing is more important than the bass player or the drummer to be like one instrument. It's really not bass and drums; it's bass drums. You got to be completely, totally united. And the drummer in particular has to listen to what all the other players are doing and play just at the right level and with just the right feeling and emphasize, what the piano player is playing. And if the guitar player is playing a solo, hit the right notes to emphasize and create drama, create excitement. So I think teamwork is critical. It's the whole thing.
Yeah, guys, talking to the tremendous Kevin Ellman right now. It's been nice to give me some time tonight on the Sunday night. I don't know if you're aware of this. In 1980, you were mentioned in a Modern Drummer article. Do you know who mentioned your name?
I remember. I do know about that. I think it was the Neil Peart article.
Yeah, he said he loved your playing and loved your concert Tom work. Talk to me about back then, getting a compliment like that, and even he said not many guys were doing what you were doing back then. How did it make you feel, even today, to have him mention you in an article?
Well, I felt really good. I really appreciate it. I mean, he's a tremendous drummer. He's one of the greats, and the fact that I was an early influence on him makes me feel very good. When I first got the idea, I don't know, I think I would have been 19 or 20, and I was actually in a recording studio in New York City, and I saw a drum setup with the concert toms. I didn't see anybody playing it. I just saw the setup in the studio as I was on my way to some other studio to do a record date. And I said, I really would like to try that. So one day I just got the idea. I think I'm going to do it. So I went out and I bought 4 concert toms, and I added it to my set, and I started working it out and doing those long drum fills. And if there were certain times when those 8-tom drum fills really created some drama, and really fit with what Todd was doing. And there were some fills that Todd and I were playing the exact fill exactly together, and it was very, very exciting. And I don't recall, I don't know if anybody was doing that then. I mean, I think I was one of the first, not the first, but one of the first. And on record, I don't remember hearing that kind of fill before.
Yeah, I'm trying to think now. I can't think. I mean, if I thought hard enough, but hey, that's tremendous stuff. Yeah, just great. Play with some great artists. You've mentioned a Bette Midler, a Barry Manilow, Laura Branigan, a Chuck Berry. But I think if I'm being honest, or I could ask you, was Todd Rundgren and Utopia, was that almost like a safe place for you, a home, really special in a way to be involved in that project, and even still today, with people from that band?
Well, it was a very special time. So there were four of us who played together in other bands. So John Siegler and I, Ralph Schuckett, and Woogie Klingman, we all played in another band before we met Todd. So we all were very comfortable playing together. And what was unique about Todd is that he didn't really tell us what to play. We would sit down, he might show us a song, and Woogie might show us a song, or Ralph and John would come up with a song. I only wrote one song. But they would come up with a song, and everybody would just create their own parts. And Todd never said, "Oh, play it this way, play it that way." He never said anything. So we just played what we thought would sound good, and then we would record it and we would listen to it live, and if it sounded good, we keep doing it. But things would evolve over time. Sometimes the tempos would change, sometimes the feels would change, and particularly after being on the road for 6 months, you come up with some different ideas. But that was, I think, what was special about his group. Is that he let us stretch out. He let us become our own musical personalities, and it happened to work. It worked very well.
Absolutely, tremendous stuff. Can you apply some of the same mental aspects, such as concentration, focus, completion, determination, as you do behind the set to behind the desk?
Absolutely. The learning how to play an instrument is really almost like the perfect success model for life. If you say, well, I want to learn how to play the drums, you go out and get a set of drums, you get a teacher, and then you have to practice, and you have to work with other people. So if you, in any profession, so, I'm in the wealth management profession, so, I didn't specifically hire a wealth management teacher, but I went to school, I became a certified financial planner, I read, I study, I discuss, and I'm constantly, thinking about and refining my thinking and perfecting my technique and perfecting my method. And I do have a method for how I manage money and how I work with people. And I have a team. But I think the number one thing that music taught me was how to listen. So if you're working with a client and you're talking about what their goals and objectives are, you have to listen not only what do they say, but their tone of voice when they say it and their body language when they say it. And you have to also think about and listen to what they're not saying. So somebody might say, "Oh yeah, I'm comfortable taking risk, and I like to invest in stocks," but maybe they hesitate when they say it. So you say, "Well, how do you feel when the market went down?" "Oh, I didn't really like that." So you have to really probe and try to understand how people feel about how they feel about their own money, what money means to them. What's going to happen if their account goes down by a certain amount, and you have to listen to all that. And then try to tailor a program that really fits the personality of the person. So I work with an awful lot of families, and I can work with two brothers. They have the same exact amount of money. They're both married. They both have kids, and yet they have completely different attitudes about money. So even though on paper they look the same, when you talk to them, you realize they feel that one person can sleep at night and not worry about money. The other person has anxiety. So you have to tailor the portfolio to be different for each of them.
Absolutely, yeah. I love that. Great stuff. In '75, I'm not going to say ended, but you left music and you joined the your father's family business, the great Beefsteak Charlie's. What attributed to this decision? And do you think if you had to make the decision over again, you would choose the same path?
Well, the big thing that happened was I got married and I had kids.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was with Todd, I was on the road 9 months a year. But we often played 5 cities a week, sometimes even 6 cities a week. So we literally were living out of a suitcase like gypsies. And I knew that if I continued with this life, this is what it would be my whole life, because I wasn't a singer, I wasn't a songwriter, I would never have my own Kevin Ellman band. I would always be, a musician in somebody else's band, and most likely I would be traveling on the road my whole life. And once I had kids, I realized, I think it's important to me to have a family. It's important to me to know my children. I don't want to live like that. So one day I said, I'm not going to travel anymore. I'm just going to stay in the city and play music. So I I was in the city, New York. I was doing some studio dates, playing some weddings, doing some, odd gigs around town. And my father calls me up and he says, Kevin, listen, I have 70 restaurants, 70 Beefsteak Charlie's. And in Beefsteak Charlie's, they give away free beer, wine, sangria, and a salad bar in all the restaurants for $4.99, and with including a steak, if you can imagine, at the time.
I know.
So
yes,
nobody ever went into the bar. They all went into the restaurant and they drank free beer. So he said to me, listen, what do you think about the idea of we'll put music in all the bars, and you'll hire bands, 70 of them, and you'll move them around to all the different restaurants, and maybe we can sell some booze. I said, well, sure, I'll try that. So all of a sudden now I'm holding auditions, and I had to hire 70 bands. And, it's like, I'm hiring rock bands and folk bands and jazz bands, and it's you're hired, you're not hired.
Yeah.
And, I'm moving them around, and I discovered that 2 things. One is I like being in charge, because now I'm the boss. Todd's not the boss. Kevin Ellman's the boss. And I like, going to work and wearing a suit and having an office and having a secretary. I liked it. And it kind of suited me. So I kept doing it, and I stayed involved in the business. Eventually, I became the director of entertainment and the director of advertising, director of marketing, and the director of operations. And eventually, I'm running the whole business with my father. I had gone back to school. I had studied accounting. I studied finance. I studied business. And I really, really enjoyed it. I liked it. And to this day, I still really like being in business and a lot of the things that, it means. But eventually, my father sold the chain. And now, he retired. And now what am I going to do? So at first, I started a consulting service for restaurants. And little by little, that morphed into financial consulting and financial consulting for all kinds of businesses. And my big break came when I got myself on CNBC, and I was a regular guest on Power Lunch for about 15 years. And that's what was my big break. People would call me in and say, hey, I saw you on television. Can you help me? And that's where I built up my practice. And truthfully, being a musician and being a performer really helped me when I was on television. To me, it was the same. I'm performing on live television, but instead of playing the drums, I'm answering questions about personal finance. So it was really good preparation for that.
Do you ever say to yourself, what if I would have stuck it out in music? Do you ever get those thoughts? Say, what if I would have stuck it out?
Well, I do. Yes, of course I do. Every now and then I think about, what would that have been like? And, I often talk to either other musicians my same age or other drummers my same age, and I can kind of compare notes and figure, I probably would have been on the road with, all kinds of musicians, all kinds of bands. I might have, made some records. I don't know if I would have been famous. I would have been, I think I would have been one of the top guys, but,
right.
I think I would have been traveling on the road my whole life. I may not have had a good marriage. I might not have known my kids. I might have had drug or alcohol problems. I probably wouldn't be as fit as I am. So it would have been a different kind of life. However, the only regret I have is that I would, if I had done that, I would have left a much larger body of work. Maybe I would have left, 200 recordings or 500 recordings behind.
Right.
As opposed to, a half a dozen recordings. So in that sense, I missed that opportunity. But I'm happy
absolutely.
with my life.
Yeah, you're doing
And
good.
I
It's
still
great,
play.
great stuff.
I still play all the time.
Excellent, excellent. I've interviewed almost 200 drummers now, and what do you think it is about drummers, Kevin? They love to portray themselves. They love to convey themselves in front of big audience. I could probably name 50 of my guests that are speakers, public speakers. They have so many companies where they go out and they travel, the world, speaking about life. What is it about drummers that, we want to do that? What do you think it is about them?
Well, I'm not sure that it's that different from being a guitarist, but but being a drummer it's very physical. It involves a tremendous amount of coordination. Even though you're not playing chords and melodies, you're coordinating 4 limbs. You got to be able to do 4 things with each limb. But it's true that in most bands, the drummer is in the back. They tend to be, they're considered a backup musician. But a lot of studies have demonstrated that drummers tend to be very, very intelligent, very math oriented, and a surprising number of drummers are very, are very good in finance. So I read an article recently that said drummers are smarter than everybody else. So I don't know. I don't really know why that is, but I do believe that drummers are pretty smart.
Do you ever watch Drummers Today? I want to get your perspective on what's going on in the drumming. Do you ever go to check out drummers on YouTube or live? Do you see the new generation, what's going on with drums now?
I do sometimes go on YouTube, and I watch some of the new drummers. I listen to a lot of stuff. At the moment, I'm particularly keen on all kinds of funk drummers. But I don't see a lot of live music, unfortunately.
What's your take on this? I call it the new chop or guys. Guys that are just chop masters, so on. They just everything has to have a fill, not too much feel in what they're playing. What's your take on these new guys?
Well, I mean, I think it's great to have chops. And for certain kinds of music, if you're playing fusion, then, it's great to have a lot of chops. But, nothing is important as great time and a great feel. And, I was talking to somebody the other day and talking about the whole concept of, playing something simple and perfect is a different kind of skill. When I started playing, I started playing because I heard Ringo. And, I think everybody would agree Ringo did not have great technique, but somehow what he did was perfect. It was perfect for that music. And there's certain guys like, Charlie Watts, or even John Bonham, who, probably has more technique. He had more technique than he actually used, but I think he's a great example of someone who played simple, heavy, perfect stuff. And he wasn't blazing around the kit. Although some of the stuff he did was very difficult, it didn't necessarily, wasn't trying to impress people with his technique, trying to make something that sounded great. And some of the other drummers that I listened to growing up were like Ginger Baker was one of my favorites, and everything he played was, just sounded great to me. So I think, well, it's great to have technique, and it's great to play anything that's called for, and play anything that you hear. You've got to make music, and it's got to sound good. It's got to feel good. And in my mind, when I play, I want people to be tapping their feet and bobbing their head and getting up and dance. And if it doesn't do that, then I'm not sure what the point is sometimes.
Absolutely. What was always your number one objective to always convey to the artist you were playing with?
Well, I want to make them feel good and sound good. And, I'm crystal clear that the job of somebody once said that a band can't be any better than its drummer. So you gotta set the beat. You gotta make the sound. You gotta create the framework, the foundation for the music, particularly with the bass player. So if you and the bass player are locked, then it's gonna sound great, and the groove's gonna be great, and then the other musicians can just do their thing on top of it. So I think of it kind of like that. It's like you got to lay the foundation, and then if the time is locked in and it sounds great, then the other musicians are not going to have any trouble playing, in the groove, in the time. But if there's anything loose about what's going on with the drum and the bass, and it's not really locked in, it's not going to sound that great. So, but you're definitely there to, I don't want to say that you're a backup, but you're definitely there to serve the music, and it's got to feel good. And, sometimes when I'm playing by myself, I'm just concentrating on playing a simple beat perfectly, so it's absolutely perfect, and it pops, and it makes you want to move. So that to me is what it's got to make you want to move.
Great, I love that. Makes you want to move. How's everything going at Wealth Preservation Solutions and the CEO? How have you been adapting to that different lifestyle from a drummer?
Well, actually, things are going quite well. And the thing that I enjoy about it is that I work almost exclusively with business owners, and almost exclusively what I'll call blue-collar business owners. So some of my biggest client, believe it or not, is a plumber. Now, it's not a small plumber. He happens to be he's got a big plumbing company. And my other biggest customer is a guy who digs holes. So he digs, a lot of holes for a lot of pipes for a lot of big companies. But they're regular guys, they're down-to-earth guys, and the thing about a business owner as opposed to like an executive or a doctor or a lawyer is that, they're going to find their guy that they trust, they're going to give him the assignment, and they're going to, let him do his job, as opposed to some people who like second-guess you all the time. So I like working with self-made men, people who started with nothing, built themselves up, and they're interesting people, and I find it very gratifying to help people and work with people and help them, manage their money and make smart decisions. It's very satisfying.
Great stuff. You've had a great career, even behind the set, now behind the desk. The great Kevin Ellman. Can people come see you play? Are you doing anything at all ever? And any clubs at all?
Well, I have a band with John Siegler called Group Therapy. We mostly play in Westchester because that's where those guys live, and they get gigs up there. And anytime I play, I post them on my Facebook page. So anybody wants to know what I'm doing, they can find me on Facebook, and I'll make sure everything gets posted. So if they want to come hear the band, they can.
Guys, check out all Kevin Ellman does with his band Group Therapy, and check out, everything he's doing. Wealth Preservation Solutions, great stuff there. The CEO, like he's really living life. I can't thank you enough, Kevin, for coming on my show. I love the whole story, going back to the early days with Todd and what you're doing now. Hopefully one day we can meet. I actually live in Staten Island, so where you grew up.
We'll definitely
I know where you grew up.
To get together.
Yeah, absolutely. But I can't thank you enough, guys. A great Kevin Ellman. Kevin, thank you so much for giving me some of your time. It's my pleasure.
Thank you for having me on the show. I appreciate it, and I hope to meet you face-to-face soon. All right, take care.
Have a great night.
Good night.
Thanks, Kevin.
Bye.
Guys, the great Kevin Ellman. Just great stuff. He played with some great artists, and his early work with Todd Rundgren, just great stuff. A lot of off-time stuff. I love the off-time stuff, but always in the pocket, great stuff. And then Neil Peart mentioned him. He was a fan. That's pretty cool, too, to have that on your resume. But thanks to the great Kevin Ellman. Do some promos and then see where we are with our last guest of the evening.